Welcome, everybody. And we're thrilled that you could join us for part 2 of Cool Tools. Alex is going to be sharing with you some lots and lots of actually really great resources. If you were at part 1, you know that there are a flurry of great resources, and we are going to post the recording along with the chat, because we found in the first one especially too that folks were sharing other resources that they use in the chat. So we want to make sure to capture all that for you. I'll be sharing links as we go in the chat so that you can keep track of everything, but Alex does have all of this in one document. So I'll be sharing all that information soon. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Alexandra Pickett.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm here with Erin today and Rob Pierkowski from SUNY Online for part 2 of Cool Tools and Tips. And first, I want to say, well, I want to share with you my exciting news, which is I successfully defended my dissertation proposal yesterday. So I am an official candidate. So I'm very, very excited to share that news with you. And then second, with this presentation, we're going to be talking about the part 2 of the session, and the link to all of the fire hose of resources that I'm about to share with you can be found at this URL. And I think Erin and Erin's going to be popping the links that I share in the chat with you all. But everything that I'm going to show you is found here in this under this URL. There's a document within that folder, and I'm showing you now that document that has all of the links from part 1 and all of the links from the 2 topics that we talked about in part 1, and then all of the links for today are also here as well. So you have a little goodie bag that you can return to whenever you want to come back to revisit some of the things that I am going to show you today. So as I said, let me just go to our agenda here. We talked about cutting content and creating community last time. I think that's what we did last time. It was cutting content, yep, and cultivating community. And so today, what we're going to start with is creating connection, and then communicating care will be the second C. There's 4 C's in this presentation. So we talked last time, if you were here, about using the right tool for the job. So just make sure to say that I'm not advocating the use of any particular tools or all of these tools, or that you have to use all of these tools. I am simply sharing with you some tools and some ideas about how these tools might be used by you in online instruction to assist you to achieve your instructional objectives in a way that might be better or easier or faster or safer or less expensive, those kinds of things. But it always comes back to your instructional objectives, and that's really what drives and what helps to make decisions about what tools to use. So it's really not about the tools, it's about assisting you to achieve your objectives better. So let me get to the actual first topic under creating connection. And as I mentioned, it is about your instructional objectives, and that really is the blueprint for how to design an effective and engaging online instructional environment. And you start with your instructional objectives. And I really like this resource because this guy Carl Wenning wrote it in 2010, but I love it because he gives an example of poor objectives and better objectives. And you can't underestimate, how important getting the objectives right. They really are the blueprint for the rest of your course, and will help you to cultivate connection within your course. And making your objectives clear and expectations clear for the students is one of the main ways you can make sure that you have cultivated a strong, good, productive connection with your learners. So you can see here that, writing it with the notion of knowing something is not as good as if you are actually asking them to write something. And the same with the word understand. You often see the word understand in objectives, and it can be drastically improved by making it more active. So instead of understanding the distinction of something, you ask the students to provide you with something. So I really like this resource, recommend that you give it a read when you have a chance. I also, for those of us who like to look at things visually, I found this wheel, which I really like. And so you can see, for example, if you're targeting in terms of your objectives, if you're targeting an objective that has to do with recall or remembering something, you could ask students to remember something by recalling the definitions of something, for example. Or you could ask them to hit the applying level of critical thinking by asking them to calculate something and demonstrate that they've applied it by showing you the graph of their calculation. And I'm over here in the applying area. You could also, let's look at the evaluating section here in purple. You could ask them to argue the pro position in a debate on some topic, right? So that would be how you would begin to think about how you address higher order thinking skills, making a variety of objectives that target the different levels, and then using more active ways to describe what your expectation is in terms of how the learner makes their thinking and learning an application of what they've learned visible to you. So I'm going to talk about a couple of resources that I love and another thing that you can do is talk to your instructional designer to have them help you look at your objectives to improve them for the online environment. Here's a tool for an instructional designer or an instructor. It's by Arizona State University, and it's a little generator. It's an objectives generator based on Bloom's taxonomy, which I'll show you a little bit more in a minute. And if you're familiar with Bloom's, you can see that these are the different levels, remembers at the very basic level, and it goes all the way up through to create. So I'll show you how it works. You click on the domain, the domain the cognitive domain that you're interested in. So I want my students to create something, and I am going to ask them to design something. I'm choosing a verb. So I'm going to ask them to design something, and then I actually pre-populated this so you could see. So I want them to design a presentation in the format of their choice, and I'm writing it for the students. So in the format of your choice: narrative text, creative writing, a poem, story, song, script, drawing, illustration, whatever, video, to demonstrate how you would apply the theory of relativity. So that's my objective. And then I hit, the little arrow, and then I can copy this this objective then to use it in my course. So it's a simple little generator that'll help you think things through. Another way that you could do this, is by actually referring to Bloom's taxonomy and thinking about the knowledge dimension, which talks this blue horizontal headings here are factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive. That's the knowledge dimension. And then there's the cognitive process dimension, which is along here going vertically. So you can look at creating factual things, and then an example of that would be generating a log of daily activities. And you can use this I don't know what you would call it, like a grid, to help you think about and and target the different cognitive processes and the different knowledge dimensions to make sure that you're not just all in one. You're not just all in remembering or all in, one of the other ones, that you're giving some variety to that. So this doesn't mean you have to use all of them. It just means appropriate for the level of the students, appropriate for the discipline, and just being conscious of the fact that you want to try and have some variation there to move the way that students can demonstrate their thinking to you in the online environment in a way that is progressing them towards your goals, your instructional goals. This is another graphic representation of Bloom's taxonomy, similar to the other ones, where you can, use it kind of like a grid, where if you want to apply, we want the learners to apply something that's factual, and you follow the graphic. An example would be to respond to frequently asked questions, or creating at the metacognitive level is to create, and not too small, I can't read that, to create some kind of innovative learning portfolio, I guess is what it says. Anyway, I'll leave this here for you to these resources here for you to dive into in more detail on your own as you're looking at your own objectives and improving them, and thinking about them from these perspectives. Here's a nice little graphic full of verbs that target each of the different levels. I love this one because it's owl. If you'd prefer one without owls, there are lots of these types of resources that are out there, but just to give you ideas of types of words besides know and understand to use in your objectives. Okay, so let's go to course management tips in terms of cultivating connection. I have this resource here for you to take a look at with suggestions for improving learner engagement and course management tips that are going to assist you to help keep your learners engaged. You want to maybe think about creating some expectations regarding what's acceptable in your online course, sort of thinking about things as agreements that you're making in your learning community. One of the things I'm going to show you in a little bit more when we're talking about belonging has to do with co-creating an online learning community agreement. You can also, in order to keep learners engaged in terms of course management, make regular weekly announcements. And if you teach online, no doubt you do many of these things. It's really, good to check your course regularly, to provide some sort of a profile or introduction to yourself, whether you're using the learning management system mechanism for that. Sometimes they have sort of like a common form that everyone can fill out, or you may want to do that, individually, and include a video of yourself and welcoming people to the class. Again, this is about cultivating connection, so helping the learners understand who you are and that you're a real person, and kind of trying to reach through that boundary, that artificial boundary that's created by the technology. So profiles and videos and course tours will help you to create mechanisms for your students to be able to know who you are, more than just the name, the static text name of the professor of the course. You want to make sure that you deal with technical errors and help students understand how to deal with technical errors. Again, trying to eliminate and remove barriers to create connection. Technology, as we all know, goes south periodically. And so we need to be resilient about that, help our learners be resilient about that, and give them confidence that no matter what the technical issue might be, that there are supports for them to resolve those issues, and that you can assist them with that. Providing feedback to learners obviously is another way to cultivate connection, knowing that they're in a safe place where you're going to guide them and give them the appropriate feedback so that they can meet your expectations is an extremely important aspect in online teaching and learning. Making sure that there's new stuff for them to see or do, that they can see that it's a living, dynamic environment, not a static, self-paced kind of place for where they feel alone. So you can easily do many things to make sure that things appear to the learners when they log in. So whether it's by having, a widget that will help them understand where they are and what's new, or an announcement that comes in weekly, that kind of thing. You want to make sure that you're attending to that aspect of it to help make sure that they understand that this is a living, breathing, learning environment in which people are doing things and new things are happening every day. Another easy way to cultivate connection is whenever you talk to a learner in your class, in your online course asynchronously, call them by name. It is a very small tip, but it is a very powerful tip. When you start a post, use their name. And sometimes you can even call on multiple students in the post, and then make sure to say, maybe at the end of it, that this is for everybody, also not just for those individuals, but using people's names in an online asynchronous environment is a very powerful way to cultivate connection. You want to be encouraging. I have this whole little section here about dealing with dominant learners, and I'll let you take a look at that on your own, if you've ever had that experience where you have someone in your class who has some challenges in terms of how they interact. There's a bunch of suggestions here and resources, and I think in general, if you look at the suggested solutions here, you can resolve many of these by, at the outset of the course, as the course begins, to create an online community agreement to establish guidelines of behaviors and interactions, and that set clear expectations, and that have spaces in your course for certain types of interaction, and that it's known and understood that, things that are perhaps not of, course related, academic related content can go in the student lounge, for example, and just to make sure that you set some parameters for expectations about interaction, engagement, communication, and so forth. Okay, so let's see what we have next for you. More on cultivating connection through your learning activities. So making sure that you are thinking about, again, I already talked about the aligning your course objectives and writing your course objectives, but I'd like you to think about active learning and to think about all of your learning activities, and is there something that you could do to improve them in terms of making them more active, more participatory, more engaging, so that you are giving learners choices and options in how they demonstrate their thinking and learning to you and others in the class. Are there opportunities for you to open that up? So maybe it's not just to you that they're demonstrating how they're applying things, but maybe you're taking the opportunity to have them do that for others in the class, and then opening up their activities to peer review, for example. So thinking about collaboration, thinking about interaction and engagement, and opening up choices and options for learners to make their thinking visible to you and others, I think is a really important part of cultivating connection and making, designing the the content that maps to your objectives that then supports collaboration and interaction between the students. So this resource that I have here for you is about group work and understanding better how to do it better online. If you believe that learning is a process that is socially constructed, that it happens in combination of interaction with you, the instructor, between the students, with the students and the content, then designing activities that allow students to interact with each other becomes a very important aspect of the design and actually effectiveness of the engagement in your instruction. So I have a lot of resources to share for you regarding how to do that well. So it's not just as simple as, putting people into a group and saying, go do this thing, right? There is a lot of energy that goes into designing a collaborative or group work activity. So I want to make sure that you have information that will get you off to a good start with that. And if you look down here at the bottom, there are a lot of tips for designing small group work, common mistakes, some successful strategies, and so forth. So I would invite you to come back to this resource if you do small work or are considering small group work or collaborations in your course, to think about some of the recommendations and suggestions that I have for you here in this resource. I have this page here in our website about active learning to help you understand some of the differences and some of the issues that are important in thinking about when you're thinking about making your online instruction more active. And if you actually read this, you'll see that this graphic here, that it's widely proliferated, but it's misleading. It's actually not the case. It's not true. This is actually not true. But there are things that you can do to understand and make your learning design of your online activities more active. And so, we're talking about cultivating connection as well as making the learning more active. So building trust and a sense of community is paramount at the outset of a course. You have to have your social presence before you can move to cognitive presence or teaching presence. So how you start a course is super important, and creating that sense of a learning community, a shared learning community where there are guidelines and agreements and expectations, and where you have that sense of belonging and trust amongst the learning community members. So icebreakers are super important for that reason. And thinking about that throughout the course, how you stitch that in to various activities throughout your course is very important. Presenting your course content in a way that promotes active learning is really also important, and making sure you facilitate more active engagement and interaction based on that content and your objectives, and then making sure that you provide feedback in your course in a way that helps support the active learning experience for the learner. So this is another article and resource that I am sharing with you for you to return to at some point. Some of you may teach online synchronously, and so I thought I would share some strategies for active learning in the synchronous online classroom. And there are a bunch of tools. This tool is from Columbia University, but they have a bunch of cool recommendations here and strategies to support it in a synchronous online environment, such as polling, and it gives you some very detailed information on how to implement it. That's one of the reasons I love this resource. Our friends at Columbia have done a great job with this. And a think, pair, share activity, for example, analogous to a synchronous classroom, like a live physical classroom, but done in a synchronous online manner. Same with a minute paper, small group discussions, and short presentations. So I'll invite you to, if any of those types of strategies sound like things you either do or would like to do or would like to improve how you do them, I would recommend checking that resource out. I want to talk a little bit about how you ask questions and how you ask questions really makes a difference. So, for example, moving from more passive ways of asking questions to more active ways of asking questions. And so, instead of saying, "Do you have any questions?" Just simply asking, what are your questions, or who has the first question, or what are your first two questions? Those are small nuanced changes into how the question is phrased, but in an online asynchronous environment, those very small nuanced changes have very powerful effects on how they reach the learners and how they engage them, and how they then perceive how to respond. So the role of questions is very, very important, I would argue, in any type of instruction, but especially in online teaching and learning. I think that it is more about the question than it is actually about the answer, and whether or not the answer can generate more questions. So that's why anytime I contribute anything in my own online instruction, I always end it with another question so that it doesn't grind the discussion to a halt. What I'm trying to do is get the learners to dig deeper, to think further, to question their assumptions, to question what others are saying, and to apply what they are thinking and they're learning in that context. So to me, it's always about asking, responding to something, but asking, what is the next question? How can I go deeper into this to better understand and to better explore the topic? So this is an awesome article that I would recommend that you take a look at if you are interested in improving your online interactions and discussions. I have a whole presentation that I do on designing effective and engaging online interactions. And so, if you have problems with your discussion where they are very, very flat, the first thing I'm going to ask you to look at is, what is the question that you're asking? And if you ask, what's the capital of Albany, there's one answer to that, and everyone is going to answer Albany if they are from this area, and it will be a very, very flat discussion with not a lot of engagement and interaction. You can, improve some things if you dive a little bit deeper into and don't ask like a question for which there's only one right answer. But you want, in an online discussion, you want to actually engage the learners to think about what it is that you are asking them, and to really go in to it, and it's the way that you ask the question that will get them to do these things. So super, super important. And getting that, like I said, I do a whole presentation on this, and I'm giving you the slides so you can take a look at them. But there is a bit of a science to how to design a prompt that is going to elicit that type of deep engagement that you see. And I hope you've had the opportunity to have the experience of deep, really, really good online interactions and discussions. All right, so So I'll leave this with you to further explore. And I think that wraps up our first topic, our first C of cultivating connection. So this one section moves to communicating care and how online instructors can use different mechanisms for communicating care to their learners. And one of the first ways that I would recommend is that in your syllabus you look for opportunities to do that. And so this resource here is a template and also a model. So you can come to this resource and make a copy of it and use it as, and then you can adapt it and modify it to your own course if you want. Or you can use it as a model and just check your own syllabus against some of the elements that are in this. You'll see right away, one of the cool things about this syllabus is that it is OSCAR informed. And if you're not familiar with OSCAR, OSCAR is our online course quality rubric. And every element in this syllabus aligns with a standard in OSCAR. So instructional designers will probably be very interested in seeing that. And as faculty, you want to look through your syllabus or adapt this one to, for example, potentially to target care. You can share your name, your preferred names and pronouns with your learners. You can add a basic needs statement to your syllabus, and there's some narrative here that you could adapt for your own purposes. You want to make sure to share with the learners that they are invited to share their preferred names and pronouns with you and with the class. And you want to attend to, again, expectations is a strong aspect of communicating care. You want the learners to not be surprised by your expectations. And so being very, very clear about that is really important. So, how they are going to interact with you is important. What they can expect from you in terms of regular and substantive interaction is super important in terms of making that clear to them. And then the other part that I wanted to highlight here had to do with, just a small example of expectations and how you are going to, or what your expectations are around the use of artificial intelligence, for example. It shouldn't be a surprise to the students that you either don't allow that at all in your course. They should know that up front. Or if you do allow it, what are the conditions under which it's allowed? And or if it's expected, what does that mean? They should know specifically how you feel about that and how you want, what you expect from them in terms of that. So I'm sharing the syllabus with you as a model and an example and as a template and a resource for you to check out and use. Again, another thing with syllabi or some additional information about designing a syllabus comes from our friend Michelle Pacansky-Barak, and you may be familiar with her. She's very, very well known in the online teaching and learning community. And one of her main things that she talks about is this liquid syllabus. And I will invite you to come back to these resources regarding the liquid syllabus because she has so much information about how to do it and why to do it and so forth. And she these days in particular is focusing on STEM online faculty. And so if you happen to be STEM or if you happen to be an instructional designer who supports STEM faculty, there are lots of wonderful resources and examples and things from her work stream that would be helpful and useful to you for those in the STEM environment. So her main premise is that humanizing yourself and your course and your materials helps the learners to feel supported by their instructors. So again, this is about communicating care. They need to know what they need to do to succeed, and you can help them in lots of different ways. And with the liquid syllabus, she's suggesting this is one of the ways. It includes a video. It includes what they can expect from you and what you expect of them. So it goes both ways, that arrow. It's not just about telling them what you expect from them. It's also about communicating what they can expect from you. And that is kind of the contract that you're making with them for the duration of the learning community. So if you say you're going to, respond to them within 24 hours, you need to make sure that you can actually do that, and that you think of that as an agreement that you're making with the learners, so that they can trust you, so that they can feel like there is that sense of trust. So yeah, all of this is really, really good stuff. I'm going to leave this here for you to check out at a later time. I have additional resources. This is a book here, all on humanizing online teaching and learning, based on many of Michelle's much of her work. This is a collaborative book that was written by a number of people on these topics. So you can see the table of contents here on the side. It's very, very well done and thought through. I also have, again, I mentioned she was very interested in humanizing online STEM. So here are more resources if you happen to be in that environment or from that discipline. If you dig around in this site, you'll actually find examples of liquid syllabi from STEM faculty, and you can see them. They're public, and they're beautiful in engineering, computer science. I mean, all different kinds of mathematics, physics, all different kinds of examples you can find in this website. And I'd encourage you to take a look if that's something that if you're from that discipline. This is like a poster that she has developed. And the reason I'm sharing this with you, well, it's cool looking visually, but also the elements here are of humanizing your online instruction are listed here in a kind of a succinct way. So it includes a syllabus, a humanized homepage, a survey, some feedback and how to do that, and then an ice-breaking activity. She uses a wisdom wall. All of these things the bumper video and the mini lectures, all of these things are things that you can dive more into to understand. And these are the elements that she is sharing in this infographic on how and why to humanize your online instruction. So it's a very, very good comprehensive resource for both faculty and instructional designers. And then if you'd prefer, instead of in an infographic to look at it, or that other book that I showed you, this is an article that was published on the same topic. So a little something for everyone on this. All right, so let's move to communicating care through diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. And I want to share with you a project that I am co-leading right now on developing inclusive online teaching strategies and annotations for online teaching and learning environments. And I'd invite you to join this collaborative if you're interested. We have 54 inclusive teaching practices that are being adapted for the online teaching and learning environment. We're working with folks from across the country. There are 60 plus institutions involved in this national project. And in fact, we have one institution from Brazil and one from Canada that is participating. We have a number of people from SUNY who are collaborating with us on this project. And, if you look through the folks who are listed here, you'll see who all is involved. The result of this project, as I said, is going to be a free and openly licensed resource that anyone, instructional designer or faculty person or DEI staff person can use to understand how, what the inclusive teaching practices are for online and how to do them, their actual annotations. So I talked earlier about co-creating an online learning community, for example. So I just clicked on that little tile to show you the details of this, and so all of these inclusive teaching practices have the same format. It starts with like a blurb, an overall aspirational statement, then some specific techniques on how to do that, and then an overview, and then how to implement the practice. Very practical and specific. All of these are intended to be very actionable and practical, with information and steps, for example, on how to do that. And then some considerations depending on the modality. And then obviously we'll include references and resources and citations, and you can see who the contributor was. This is one that I worked on, so you can see who all was involved in designing this. The cool thing about this resource is that it's open and freely licensed. It's built in this platform, and it is intended to be able to be viewed, if you are an OSCAR user, by OSCAR standards. But if you're a QM user, you can then sort these inclusive teaching practices by Quality Matter standards, or by COLT, which is another large, big rubric, or by the California CVCOEI rubric. So it's intentionally designed to be able to provide the inclusive teaching practices from the lens of whatever online course quality rubric you happen to use. All right, let me move on because I see the time. I'm sharing with you a presentation that I've done on this project to share with you some of the themes that we've learned as a result of the project. And we've been talking about a lot of these already, about making sure you're consistent, that your expectations are clear, building trust. Now, in your icebreaking activities, you can think about ways that you can value learners' experiences and identities. And then we also have talked about giving choices to learners in how they engage and interact in your course. And here are some more specific, there were 3 overarching themes that I found as I looked through what we've done so far. And here are some suggestions on how to build intentional connection with your online learners, and then designing and supporting an inclusive online environment that is engaging. Here are some suggestions for that. And then the 3rd overarching theme was cultivating a sense of belonging. And here are some suggestions for that. And so each one of these 3 overarching, underneath it, we have inclusive teaching practices that dive much more deeply into suggestions and how to for each of these. So I'll invite you to come back to these resources to check them out in more detail. I also have a resource that is a pre-curated resource for you on supporting DEI in your online teaching and learning. And so there are a number of rubrics, some presentations to take a look at. There are some videos that have been found on this topic, some full-on courses that are out there, some research, some reports, articles, some guides, some sort of primers and how-to manuals, some examples of syllabi, some resources for educators, some discipline-specific stuff, some tools, and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff here. You can Google too, but this is pre-curated for you to come and take a look at, and sort of makes that fire hose a little bit more doable and readable if any of these are topics that you're interested in. I wanted to show you a couple of the resources that I have in that resource. This one is a gender balance assessment tool. You can actually come here and put your the references section of your syllabus, or the resources or the books in your syllabus in here to look at the gender balance if you're interested in doing that, to make sure that you have equitable representation in the things that you're asking folks to read in your course. I also love this simple little resource to help you eliminate the word guy from your common way that you address people, so that you're not labeling us all guys. And so this is just a simple little tool that gives you alternatives to the use of the word guys. This is just a very, simple little thing that demonstrates how pervasive and unconscious sometimes some things are in our lives, in our realities, in our language, in our communication styles that exclude others. So when you come into a room and say, hey guys, you're excluding some of us. And it may not seem like a big deal. It may not feel like a big deal to you, but I guarantee you, feels like a big deal to somebody. So just a little note to elevate your awareness about that, and hopefully, I strive. I'm not always perfect because it is kind of baked in, but I strive to eliminate that word from how I talk with people. Another thing to build your awareness is about people's names, and making sure that you know and understand how important people's names are. I talked a little bit about that when we were talking about online discussion and starting discussions with a person's name being a very powerful tool and approach. But knowing people's names and knowing how to pronounce them is also very important. And you may know me as Alex or Alexandra, but my name is actually Alejandra. And this is a resource that I'm sharing with you so that it can help you to learn how to pronounce other people's names. And so I'll just play, I hope you can hear this.
Alejandra.
Can you hear that?
Alejandra.
That's how you say my name, Alejandra.
Alejandra.
It's not Alejandra, it's not Alejandra, it's not Alejandro or whatever. It's Alejandra. And it's incredibly important to try to pronounce people's names correctly. That resource, that first one on this What is Your Name project will generate a little graphic that helps people to understand how to say your name. And so I wanted to share that with you. All right. I do a whole presentation on supporting online learner success. I want to share this with you as a resource to come back to, or maybe when I'm doing this presentation, you'll want to come back. It is a help you understand what online faculty can do to support online learner success. And there are very specific things that you can do for very specific reasons. And it's not just because I say so or your instructional designer happens to say so. We know from studying successful online learners, many things about how they are successful and why they are successful. And some theory behind that has to do with self-regulated learning strategies and how effective online learners really have a handle on self-regulated learning, whereas learners who struggle more really do not. And so as online instructors, we can do things to support their development of successful self-regulated learning strategies. And so if you're interested in the theory, there's information here on this page about the theory. You can also just go to each one of these elements like goal setting and planning, for example, and take a look at what successful online learners do in order to demonstrate this strategy, and then what an instructor can do to support a learner to develop these skills in the course of their instruction. And so I have each of these elements that come from the scholarly work on self-regulated learning and I've gone through it and talked about what successful learners do and then what faculty can do to support the development of those skills in their online instruction and for their learners, with their learners. All right, let's go to, that's it. That was the last thing. So now I'm going to pause and ask if there are any questions. And maybe Erin, you can help me with the chat.
Thanks so much, Alex. So I don't see any questions. I may have missed something. If you do have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. And if you don't have a question, I'd invite you to share if there's something that you do or you use that kind of hits these areas of making connections and cultivating care.
I see Chris McNamara direct messaged me that they use folks instead of guys. So yeah, there's lots of different ways. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. Okay. So yeah, while we're waiting for another first question, a warm and cool feedback model. That is awesome. I have a whole resource on warm and cool feedback, providing warm and cool feedback, especially for instructional designers who are providing course reviews. So I'll dig that out and add it to the links page so that you can see what I do, Jackie, and what, you know, some of the stuff that I share on warm and cool feedback. That's an excellent approach. Do you want to say anything more about that, Jackie, to the group? No pressure.
No, I was just having a hard time getting my speaker off there. So I use the warm and cool feedback model, and I use it specifically for when we're doing peer reviews. So students take whatever the rubric is for the assignment. They then review each other's work and provide warm feedback but also cool feedback, and they can also provide a resource to help guide someone to maybe how they could deepen that specific assignment.
Nice. That's nice. If you have any documentation on that or instructions on that, I'd love to see it, and I can incorporate it into you know, some of the resources that I share with everybody. That would be awesome.
Yes, I can send you what I have.
That'd be great. That'd be awesome. And Michael is leaving us. Thank you, Michael, for coming. That was great to have you. All right, so let me just quickly go to some bonus stuff that I want to share with you. And if you have a question, just put it in the chat and we can address it. You know, we're here till whenever everyone leaves. So first, I'd like to invite you to become a fellow, and that will help you get access to resources and information that you might be interested in from us. The easiest role would be if you have experience in online teaching and learning or instructional design, you can sign up as an experienced online practitioner. If you're not from SUNY, then I would recommend that you sign up as a friend of SUNY, and that'll give you access to all of the same stuff, but designate you as someone who's external to SUNY so that you won't get anything that's intended only for SUNY people. So I invite you to join as a fellow to extend our community of practice and to help us send out communications and provide resources to folks in a targeted way. I also want to make sure that you are aware of and are members of, if you're interested, of our online teaching community. We have this in Facebook, and if you haven't joined, we'd love you, Erin and I and Rob and Willow and all of us would love you to join so that we can continue this conversation. If you're interested in continuing to talk about any of the things that we've talked about during this two-part webinar regarding CCCCool Tools for these specific purposes, we'd love to continue the conversation here in our online teaching community. You can come here and ask a question. You can come here and share a resource. Whatever it is that you are interested, you can follow certain hashtags. So if you're interested in Oscar and use the Oscar hashtag, you can see all of the Oscar related interactions. So we invite you to come and join us there. You can get a badge for this particular session if you're interested for participating in the webinar. You can come to this form and fill it out, and you'll get a badge for coming to the webinar. The platform that we use is called Credly. So in order to get the badge, you need to create an account in Credly. These are all our community engagement badges. And so you'd get the community participant badge for attending the webinar. As an online practitioner, if you sign up as a fellow, you'd get the online practitioner badge. If you're a friend of SUNY, you'd get the friend of SUNY badge. And so, we have a lot of information and resources and ways to engage as a community of practice. And our community of practice is only as good and as active as the members who belong to it are. And so whenever we do any of these presentations, we want to make sure that everyone knows about these different ways that we can connect and engage and help each other. So this series of webinars we do every semester, and here is the location where if you missed the Cool Tools Part 1, you can come to find that recording here. When the recording renders of this session, it'll be posted here, so you can come back and check it out again if you missed something, or share it with somebody that you think might be interested in it. So I just want to make sure you know that we have a place where you can go and see all of the, and this goes back, I think, to 2020, to all of the different topics that we've covered over the years. And so hopefully, if you're looking for something that we've done before, you'll be able to find it there. Our website for SUNY Online Teaching is here, and I invite you to come and check it out. We have lots and lots of resources and ways that we share what we do with our community of practice, both internal to SUNY and external, and that we also cultivate the ability for our community members to engage with us. And so we'd love to have you do a blog post for us, or on some practice that you have, or we'd love to have you share a video tour of your course with us, so that we can share it with the whole community. Like I said, we are as good as and as engaged as the members who actually participate in the community. So we are looking forward to continuing this conversation and with you in other vehicles and other platforms, and then also in continuing the conversation and continuing to grow the community with you included. So I think that's it. Is that it? I think that's it. Let's just check. I think I'm going to stop sharing for now. Erin, did I miss anything?
No, I think you have everything. I just wanted to mention, though, that on the for our next series in May, we have 2 webinars. One is on May 15th, and you'll see this on that site. One is on May 15th on AI and assessment, and the other is May 16th on engaging students in online math-related courses. And those are going to be, we are hosting them. They're going to be led by faculty on our campus, and they actually all happen to be SUNY Online Teaching ambassadors. So I would encourage you to come and listen to those topics as well. So on our registration site, you'll be able to sign up for those.
Oh, I'm just looking at the chat right now, and thank you everyone for coming and spending your lunch with us, and for your appreciation of things, and for the congratulations that people offered at the beginning. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you for spending your time with us, and are looking forward to seeing you in May with our next one.